Not necessarily the stomping ground for my first guest today. Paul Mulrennan, more familiarly, is up in the north and in Scotland. But what a season he is having. Third in the Jockey's Title race, 3 winners off another career century. To say that life is good would be an understatement. Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Alex. Yeah, all good.
And he's coming home. I mean, this is Ealing's pretty much where you were born and bred.
Yeah, no, I was brought up in South Ealing, only half a mile from here. I had my first ever job actually up in Eden Broadway in Ealing Sports. It's actually a Paddy Power Bookies now. But yeah, no, my dad still lives here and I've still got family down here, so it's very handy for me.
And I know you love your sports, but as the sort of young, say, 4, 5, 6-year-old Paul Mulrennan, was it football? What was your motivations back then?
When I was a kid growing up, it was football really. I played a lot of Gaelic football. My parents are Irish. There's a big Irish community around here, and I played for St Brendan's. That was the local team around here. But then later on in school, I wasn't the biggest. I was always very small and light. So that was an avenue. Then I spoke to the careers advisor about getting into racing, being a jockey, and that took off from there really.
So just simply in terms of size, you were aware that might be an avenue you could go down?
Yeah, I remember speaking to John Egan and him telling me about Kieran Fallon, Johnny Murtagh, Royston French. I think Richard Quinn was another jockey. They had no horsey background, but they were good at sport and they were light. So that was going to be an avenue to go down. Yeah, and
in terms of your family, but was there any connection, any passion there to racing at all?
Obviously, John Egan's my first cousin. So yeah, obviously he's a well-established jockey. And he told me all the stories about Johnny Murtagh coming to the racing school. He can remember him coming, being very good at football, very good at boxing, but couldn't ride a horse. And look how he turned out. And Kieran Fallon was very much the same.
What were the first moves for you then, from playing football to thinking about racing to getting on a horse? Take me through those first days.
I remember going to my uncle's place in Banlaslow in Galway, Uncle Kieran, and he had loads of Connemara ponies there, and he took me down to this riding school called Carey's down the road, and they literally were just chucking me up on these ponies, and I'd had me jumping poles on my first day, and then I'd just fall off, get back on, fall off, get back on. You'd have your mucking out, and I just loved it. I just loved the smell of the horses and everything, you know. I just loved being around them, yeah.
So even although you didn't necessarily have the link, bar the John Egan connection, did it become a passion? Did it become something that you almost couldn't do without?
Yeah, well, as a kid as well, I was took to the races. I remember going to Kempton. One of my first memories, I remember going the year Adrian Maguire won the King George on Barton Bank. I can remember that, and I remember going the next year then as well, and it fell at the last, and he was crying coming in. I said, wow. You know, being a jockey, 1 minute you can be up there and the next your world crumbles. But yeah. And
in terms of going from then those formative early days, learning how to be a rider, first of all, learning how to behave around horses before you actually become a jockey. How did you then bridge the gap with thinking, do you know what, this could be a job, this could be a career, this could be my life?
I think one of the assets I had early on, I was taught how to be a horseman before a jockey. I was taught how to ride a horse properly, ride long and get a seat. You know, any young jockeys I speak to now, I tell them all, this game is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And, you know, I served a good long apprenticeship. And, yeah, I just think every year by year I'd improve. And it's one thing with horses, you never stop learning. Every day you learn something new with them. And I'm riding 20 odd years now, and I just think every season's got slightly better and better. So yeah, just keep improving all the time.
You probably relatively you hit the ground running, didn't you? Sort of third, fourth seasons, you're getting up to 40 winners and then 70 winners. How crucial was that to kind of get the ball rolling?
It was, but when I was just starting to get going a few times, I was plagued with injury. There was a number of years there I broke my leg. I broke my collarbone 3 times. I'd done my back once, you know, so it was just 5 or 6 times there. I missed crucial stages. I was just getting going, but you've just got to keep going, haven't you? Just get back in the gym, get fit, get working hard, and get back at it. Yeah.
You and I speak a lot. We're both boxing fans. I know you do gym work, and obviously the mental side of that particular sport is so strong. When did you realise that might be significant and important in your life as a sportsman, but also as a jockey?
Well, me and Adele, my wife, we done the stabilised boxing, I think 3 or 4 years ago it was, and we've stuck at it. We've kept going to the boxing gym all the time. But the guy we train with, Keith Walton, he's always telling me, Paul, the most important muscle in your body is your brain. If it isn't tuned in, it's not going to work. You know, boxing it can be so similar to being a jockey. You know, a lot of the fights you see, they're very evenly matched, but it all comes down to tactics, doesn't it? So a lot of that with racing as well. A lot of the, you know, especially your middle of the week racing, the horses are very evenly matched. So a lot of it can boil down to just getting tactics, being in the right position in a race, and that's, yeah, it's all very, very, very similar.
That's something that I think is sometimes easy to watch racing, but not necessarily understand why a jockey is doing something. It's not always easy to interpret that from the outside. I think sometimes as a racing fan, it's too easily to simplify what's going on in racing, and often there's a lot going on, isn't there? In terms of that thinking like a jockey, not just being a jockey, not just being a horseman, but thinking like a jockey. How did you develop along those lines?
Well, all of that comes with experience, doesn't it? And track positioning and knowing tracks. Where is there a headwind? Is there a side wind? Is the wind behind your back? You know, you see a lot of people in bookmaker shops watching racing, and if a jockey stuck out the back, they'd be going mad. But some horses have to be ridden quiet and ridden like that. Some horses like to be ridden from the front. So all of that just comes with experience, knowing your horse, knowing your track, ground, weather conditions. You know, there's so many things to put together. So
I'm getting the sense then that there's never really been a time where you have thought, I'm getting there, or I'm getting it, or this is clicking, because I suppose perhaps it never does.
No, I remember Paul Carberry saying, the day you think you know it all in this game, you're finished, you know. I think if you ask any trainer, jockey, every day you're learning something new about horses. You're never at the bottom of them.
And that's coming from perhaps one of the most gifted horsemen we've ever seen.
Yeah, he's definitely in the top 3 for me anyway. Jump jockeys of all times. He was class, wasn't he, Paul? He used to do a lot of it on instinct, didn't he? He was a proper horseman, wasn't he? You know, you can't, it's very hard to teach that, but, you know, like I said to you earlier, I was lucky that when I started out, I was taught how to be a horseman first, get inside a horse's head, you know.
And obviously you're on the flat, but it sounds like you've got a little bit of passion, or you have at least had experience of followed the National Hunt game as well.
Yeah, well, look, for a little crazy time, I actually thought I was going to be a jump jockey.
When was
for a very short
that?
time. When I was at Mick Easterby's, I had 2 rides over hurdles, and let me tell you, too many. You know, I take my hat off to them jump boys. Niall Hannity got me a ride one Boxing Day. There was obviously there's loads of meetings, isn't there, on the Boxing Day, and I had my conditional licence. So off I trotted up to Ayr Road. This got round, so that wasn't too bad. Then I got one in a novice hurdle at Newcastle. I remember Mick Easterby saying to me after, Paul, I don't think this is for you, this jumping. I was hanging off out the back of it. I got round, but it wasn't for me.
And if you were to describe then that experience, how would you describe it?
They're 2 completely different sports. It's just completely different, jump racing to flat racing, you know. Just the whole pace of the race. But I couldn't see a stride. Everyone kept going to me about a stride. I didn't have a clue. I was just hanging on for dear life.
And was there a point in flat racing, though, where you started to get used to the pace? Because that's often it, isn't it, for any young jockey coming through? Everything happens so quickly. Maybe you learn to slow things down, or things just slow down. Your mental approach to everything is quick enough to deal with the way the things are unfolding.
Yeah, I think my riding style has definitely changed a fair bit in the last probably 4 or 5 years. Just being a bit more patient and taking me time. You know, I remember Richard Fahey always saying once about Paul Hannigan. Paul knows where the winning line is, you know. He used to be able to time his runs to perfection. Obviously, Paul was based with me up in the north. I remember when he was dual champion jockey. And yeah, it's just being patient. And you know, I think the winters in India done me good as well. I remember being out there with Richard Hughes, and he'd drop these horses in and he'd be motionless on them. He wouldn't move on them. He just knew when to time it right. And a lot of it is just timing and feel, you know.
That, I think, is a really difficult thing. I always say this I'm often interviewing young jockeys and young boxers, and the most difficult thing, I think, for them is to learn and develop your own style, because inevitably you will do that, but you'll do it with little influences, little bits of advice from other people. You've always got people you look up to, haven't you? And you try, and as a young broadcaster, I remember seeing some of my colleagues and thinking, oh, that works, I like that, and you take on little tips, maybe mould yourself in certain ways. Who were the influencers for you in that way?
There's lots of jockeys as you just touched on, you need to get your own style though. I have got my own style, but there's loads of different jockeys that I like. When I started out, Pat Eddery, obviously when I started out at Brian Meehan's, Pat Eddery used to come in and ride work, and he was class. I remember one morning riding work with him, and he was on a keen filly called Emma Peel, and I remember leading him in the work and saying, "Oh Pat, watch that, it's a little bit keen." He said, "Yeah, all right kid," and looked round, there's a big loop in the rein. But obviously I'm a lot taller than Pat Eddery. There's no point in me really completely trying to ride like Pat, because I'm a completely different style, different size. You know, a lot of jockey. Kevin Manning in Ireland, I admire him. You know, he saw out the test of time. He's a good world-class rider. But again, you can't just pigeonhole yourself to one rider. I like to try and pick different styles of different people, you know.
And also you've got to, particularly as a relatively tall flat jockey, you've kind of got to mould a style that fits your body as well, I suppose.
You just got to ride how you feel comfortable, you know. Like I said, I like to jump racing as well, so I would always take little bits from some of the jump jockeys, how they would ride as well.
I remember when I was riding at Fahey's a few years ago, and there's a guy there, a really experienced guy called John Murphy. He would ride Ribchester, and there's me getting run away with every other day. And Ribchester was the tank of a horse. He wasn't easy, and Murph just made it look so easy to people like me.
I remember when I started out in Lambourne, Wally Walton saying to me one day, the biggest key to a jockey they can have, especially a flat jockey, is good hands. Like at the time, I didn't really know what he meant. I've just left London, and he's going about good. What does he mean by good hands? But you know, if you look at the top, the best jockeys in the world, they've all got great hands. They can all relax a horse, settle a horse, and that's the biggest key for me, I think.
And how much of that is in the hands? How much of that's in the fingers, would you say?
It's all in your hands, but it's all in your body demeanour, isn't it? The horse can feel, if you get on and you're all tense and in a rush and too eager, they can feel that, so just being able to relax. But I think that comes with age and experience. You're just a bit more relaxed, you take your time a bit more. Yeah,
indeed, in every way, don't you? What would you say this season, because you are on course, to get a century, you've had a couple of those before, 6 years on from your last one, but also potentially, all things being well and fingers crossed, a career best season as well. What have been the main ingredients, would you say, for all of that coming together?
Oh, I don't know really what to pinpoint it completely on, but I've been injury-free, not really got many suspensions. Age, I just think I'm a bit more experienced now. Got a good family life. My wife Adele understands. I might be grumpy some days. Some days if I do have a day off and she wants to do something, I want to go to the gym, or, you know, she's very understanding like that. My daughter, you know, I think you see a different aspect on life when you've had kids as well, you know. My agent, Richard Hale, I've had him for 21 years, I think now. We understand each other very well. You know, he books my rides. And I get a lot of support from a lot of trainers up in the north of England and in Scotland, so yeah, I don't know what to pin it on down, but I just hope it continues.
Absolutely right. Well, we're going to talk about some of that family life and other connected talking points as well. But here is a flavour of Paul Mulrennan's story this season.
On the far outside, Redana is picking up from absolutely nowhere. Redana coming home, strongest of all, over the top to win the first Cup. Redana.
Oh, this is class. Northern Express devised top weight cleverly. Paul Mulrennan double for Michael Dodds.
And Yarser to the near side is running on strongly for Paul Mulrennan. And Yarser's hit the front. And Yarser stretches away for another win. Yarser the winner.
Near side Dark Jedi, a three-way go as they head towards the line, so over that. And on the near side, Dark Jedi very close between them.
War Willie is nothing if not determined along the inside. They came to him, but they couldn't get past. So War Willie goes on for a third win of the season.
Azure Blue, the final challenger down the near side. Here comes Azure Blue with a strong late run, got up to win it.
And Barefoot Angel now for Richard Fahey, who's going on close home. Stand side for leading. Barefoot Angel won the first of flying.
Always good for me to see any memory a winner up at the Western meeting as well. But that's a special meeting, isn't it?
It's a great meeting. It's our Royal Ascot of the year for the Northerners up at Ayr, and it's a meeting I've always had a lot of luck at. So it was great to, obviously I've had plenty of winners this year, but it's nice to get a big one and to win the Group 3 there last week for Richard Farr. He was great.
Richard Farr providing winners, long-standing relationship with Michael Dodds as well, which continues, and Jim Goldie.
Yeah.
Has been a regular supplier. The wily old fox, Jim Goldie. What's that relationship like?
Oh, it's been great, and I've probably put a lot of the way I've been riding the last few years down to Jim. He's always got a plan. He's got a theory. He likes the way I ride. We discuss tactics a lot of the time, and I've put a lot of it down to Jim really the last few years about being a bit more patient, and he's very much into track positioning and tactics, wind, different things like that. So he's been great for me when I've been going up to Scotland. He actually said to me in March, he said, I've got the most horses I've ever had. I think we're in for a big season, and we have. We've hit it off well. He's
a fascinating character, Goldie. I suspect that some racing fans, even maybe some of my racing colleagues in the media, are not quite sure what to make of him.
Yeah.
He often phones me on the way to the races, and we'll be on the phone for 45 minutes, and he will be yakking about this, that, and the next thing. He's a very creative thinker. He's a very open-minded when it comes to horse racing.
Yeah.
He's a very deep thinker. He's a very interesting man.
As we touched on before, you never stop learning with horses, and Jim isn't afraid to change different training methods. Sometimes he tells me stuff he's done with these horses, and I'll be scratching my head, but then they'll go and win. He's not afraid to change feeding methods, and I think that you've got to be very open with horses, try different things with them all the time,
Anyone who can get a 5-furlong sprinter to win over 3 miles over hurdles, and anyone who could do the opposite, get a stayer to win over sprints on the flat, is just a genius in my book, and Goldie's got that in him. His riding, I suppose his style, he more times than not, he probably wants his horses to be held up. Is that fair?
Yeah, he likes them to relax and come home and finish off their races. Last two furlongs, best two. He's very easy to ride for. He doesn't really tie me down to too many instructions. We both understand each other. I know the horses well now as well, so yeah, it works well.
So you're talking about your riding style. How would you, if you were describing that to someone like me or a racing fan, or someone who had no idea about racing, how would you say?
Well, you never really, as a jockey, want to be pigeonholed as just one style. I like to think I can ride most sort of races, really. I definitely think I've got more confident riding the last few years, taking me time a bit more, producing horses, riding with a bit more confidence, really, I think is probably the best way to describe it.
And do you think you're riding better now? Do you think you know more now? Are you more comfortable in your own jockey skin now than you ever have been? Yeah,
no, definitely, yeah. It's mad, I'm 40 now, but I feel I'm fitter and stronger than I was even when I was in my 20s or when I was 30. We've got all the help out there now with your diet, gym. These young lads coming through, your David Egans, your Tom Marquands, your Holly Doyles, they're all in the gym, they're all fit. So you've got to keep up with them.
It's an unusual profession, isn't it, in that regard, that you almost can get better as you get older. That is very unusual in sport.
That's one thing that struck me, that when I started riding, though, the lads I looked up to, your Pat Eddery's, your Kieran Fallons, Tony McCoy's, Frankie, they all got better with age. Again, it's a marathon, this sport, not a sprint. I think even the same with trainers, they get better with experience, don't you? Learning from your mistakes. And like I said before, all the help is out there now for jockeys, being fitter, better diet, obviously making weight can be tough. But as you get older, you know what your body can and can't do. I don't do as light as I used to do. I was probably doing too light, really, 10 or 15 years ago. You're a bit weaker, your head can be fried sometimes. So I think putting my weight up a couple of pounds has helped me as well.
So a combination of that, knowledge and experience, and the diet side of things, you're one of a group of jockeys who've got up to John Moores in Liverpool. George Wilson, Dr. George Wilson, who's done a lot of great work. He works with, has worked with World Championship boxers, the Smith family, up in Liverpool as well. He's an enthusiastic, experienced and knowledgeable guy. How important has that side of things and that input, advice and help been to you?
Well, I went to see George probably 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, and I say it here now, I probably wouldn't be riding now if it wasn't for George, really. He really helped me with my diet and got me on the right avenue. He works with a lot of top athletes. Like I say, all the help is out there now for everybody, and I think some of the jockeys thought they'd just go down there and George has a magic wand and then you're going to be a stone lighter, but it's not. You've got to work at it. You've got to, it's a lifestyle. You've got to really change your lifestyle. You've got to live and breathe it, you know.
It's developing good habits. It might be changing your lifestyle entirely. And I know, still speak to jockeys. It's something I'm quite passionate about, and it's something I'm absolutely certain we're only scratching the surface with. My guess is, I would say, 5 to 10% of the weighing room are doing weight properly. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's less than that. I don't know. One thing I'm certain of, it's not enough.
It has moved forward a lot. A lot of the jockeys now are making weight a lot better than what they were. But as we touched on with the boxing, you see some fights, you think, geez, he really underperformed there. What happened there? It'll be because he crashed the weight. You know, he's not had a good camp because he's not got his weight right, and a lot of it can be with jockeys as well. You know,
and also, you know what the weighing room's like. I mean, you only have to take the National Hunt Game and Tony McCoy. McCoy changed the game. Now, he's probably a one-off.
Yeah.
But the influence of McCoy, and that's the important thing here, the influence of McCoy, the way he lived his jockey's life, has created a new generation of National Hunt jockeys, more driven, more professional, not out having a drink in an evening. McCoy did that. So you and other people in the flat, you can have the same influence. That can happen on the flat. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, I remember when I started at Patrick Haslam's and he was giving me a bollocking one morning about something, and he said, "Mulrennan, I'm telling you now, if you want to succeed in this game, you have to think like Tony McCoy. He is the man." And that's 22 or 3 years ago he told me that, and he's right. McCoy just raised the bar, you know. I don't think there'd be another one like him. He's a freak, really, wasn't he?
No. I suppose Ryan Moore's having some kind of influence in the
of course, Ryan is the McCoy of the flat, really. He's very professional, Ryan. He keeps himself very fit. His weight's always on game. Yeah, he's the role model everyone's got to look up to, really, on the flat.
Yeah, very much so. You talked about your family life. It's not easy being the partner of a sports person, man or woman, whichever way that dynamic happens to be. How important has the fact that I suppose Adele was a jockey herself, has that helped, or is it just the kind of character and person she is? That's kind of been a big part of your life.
We never see each other, so it's great.
That helps.
She's working all the time, I'm working all the time.
Well, that's now, isn't it? Yeah. Of course. You're the Posh and Becks of the racing game.
Yeah, all right, okay. No, it's Adele understands the game. She's been a jockey herself. We've both got similar interests. She likes the boxing as well. She works in the industry, so she understands it. There's probably some times you just leave him out, let him get on with whatever he's got to do. You know, I think that's very important, though, to have a good family life level. And
now you seeing her go on and do her stuff, role reversal in some ways. How's that been?
Yeah, no, it's great. Fair play to her. She's worked her way up the ranks. She's very passionate about what she's doing. Adele's one of these people as well. If she's got her eyes on the prize, if she wants something, she's going to go out there and get it. I see all the hours work she puts in. It's not easy doing what you do, this presenting game. I know you've got to put a lot of hours in.
Well, Nick Luck makes it look easy, but
yeah. No, she puts in the work. She's very knowledgeable, though. I learn stuff off her every day regarding horses. She's my jockey coach. She's always the first to tell me if I've done something wrong in a race or how I'm riding.
And you beat her once upon a time in a photo finish, didn't you? And I'd say that's a bit of husband and wife history.
Yeah, I think we're the only ever husband and wife ever to be in a photo finish. I beat her at Catterick, a short. I think it was a nose, actually. We both got stick bands. I won't repeat what she called me pulling up. She wasn't too happy.
Have you got that photo anywhere? Is it banned?
I've got a big, massive 50-inch picture of that at home. I swear to God, yeah.
And are you a keeper of memorabilia generally?
Yeah, I do like to keep a few trophies, photos, different little bits that I've picked up from riding around. You know, ridden in a few different countries. So I always like to keep something. Yeah, it's always nice to look back on stuff. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. More from Paul in due course.